Welcome to Country Fried Rock, where we talk with musicians to find out what inspires their creativity. Country Fried Rock, music uncovered. This week on Country Fried Rock, Jeffrey Foucault joins us this week to talk about Cavalcade. You might not think of the combination of lyrics from a noted poet ending up in a rock and roll album, but that's what you've got with Cavalcade, the second album from musician Jeffrey Foucault and poet Lisa Olstein, Cold Satellite. Well, the second Cold Satellite record is a rocker. I'm your host, Sloan Spencer. Find out more at countryfriedrock.org. My guest today on Country Fried Rock is Jeffrey Foucault with a nifty collaboration with Lisa Olstein called Cold Satellite. Welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
When I first heard about this record and then I actually heard the record, I was pretty surprised because it's a rock and roll record.
It is, yeah. I mean, that's not the first thing you think of when you find out that a songwriter and a poet collaborated. It's not the first thing that leaps to mind. But we've made one record prior the same way, sort of a cold collaboration or a distance collaboration. And that record, veered more toward, it had a few more ballads, and I played a little more acoustic guitar on it. And then I guess it was last summer, my daughter went to day camp at a little farm near here, and I had this whole list of things that I was going to do, like repair the siding on the house and fix the barn foundation and stuff. And then instead, I just played electric guitar for like 8 hours a day, and I wrote all these tunes, and I thought, oh, let's make a rock record. So that's what happened.
So the music came before the collaborative input of her poetry.
Well, it was coincident, at least at this point. The first time around, Lisa gave me a folder with poems that didn't work as poems, and that were not, at that point, included into her books or didn't fit into a book. And then some fragments of poems, basically language, lines, and then a few pieces that were sort of intentionally written in the style of lyrics, although she'd never written lyrics and she doesn't sing. And then this time around, it was the same thing. Having already done it once, I had a better idea what my process was, and I had a few different axes to grind, I guess, this time. There were, I wanted to take some of the poems and find ways, it was almost like a game for myself. I wanted to see if I could make as few changes as possible to the language and still work them into a format that would lend itself to a lyric. So I wrote the music around the same time, but the process for me was to pull out a page and look at it, read the first line, and that would usually give me some feel for the music, either the tempo of the language or the color of the language or the rhythm of the syllables. And then I would hear what the band was doing because I knew who the band was, and I know where the drummer puts the beat, and I know how the bass player tends to, feel the bass line. So I wrote with the band in mind, and I wrote basically all at the same time. And when it was all done, then I would go back and try to figure out what she was talking about. But I didn't really want to pay that much attention to the linear stuff until I was done.
I heard a funny story about artistic intention and what she thought and what you thought about Necessary Monsters.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's a great example of, if you read the poem version in the book, the changes that I made are relatively few. The order of the language in some cases, and then I took the last line of the poem, or I think it is, I can't remember, but there's a line, I wonder, when do we say the sea? Or maybe it's just when do we say the sea? And I just turned it into sort of a call and response blues tag. I wonder, can you tell me when do we say the sea? And I put it at the middle point of the song, and I put it at the end, which was where it would go in a blues. And I got all the way through it, and I really had not paid that much attention to what she was talking about. And I had a theory by the end, but I hadn't asked about it. And that's kind of our way. I made the record and wrote the songs, cut the record with the band, all this stuff. And then I said, Lee, what's that song about? And she said, oh, that's about being pregnant. And I thought, oh, how about that? So here's this really happening blues that's about about growing another human inside you, which I guess there it is.
Never miss a radio show from Country Fried Rock. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock.
Hi, this is Jeffrey Foucault of Cold Satellite. You're listening to Country Fried Rock.
It made me think of like when you go to an art exhibition and the artist is present and people will go up to the artist and say, so what does that mean? And frequently the artist will go, I don't know.
Right. See, sometimes people ask you what your lyrics are about. And sometimes you can say pretty directly. I mean, sometimes you just take reality and make it rhyme, and that's a pretty easy way to write a song. But then sometimes the best lines come out of nowhere. They come out of the dark corners of your brain, and if you don't know what they mean, then you're in some luck. Then you're able to put it down on paper and it'll mean something. Maybe it means something that's not particularly straightforward. Maybe it means something that's a little harder to parse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what songs are for in the first place, in poems,
This type of collaborating without actually working together, it's just an interesting way of taking one form of art and bringing it to another form of art.
Yeah, it is. They're so obviously related. Poems, verse, it was meant to be said out loud, and often it was sung quite a while. And it's only really recently in Western history, at least, that we've sort of codified poetry into this thing that happens in books. And there have been various movements to bring it back. People do readings, obviously, still. Lisa does readings, and poets, when they put a book out, they'll go tour bookstores, and they'll read their poems out loud. So, the relationship between lyric poetry and poetry itself, as closely related as they are, they're also pretty closely divided, and there are different rules and different jobs that you have to take. I write some poems. I don't usually show them to people, but I write them for myself, and I keep them, somewhere, I guess, folder somewhere. And I'm always a little bit at sea trying to figure out exactly what imperatives obtain when you're writing a poem. I read a lot of poetry, but that doesn't mean that I know exactly what I'm doing when I try to write it. At this point, I feel pretty confident that I know how to write a song. It doesn't mean I've answered the question like why I should, who I think ought to hear it, or who I think I am to tell people stuff. But those questions don't stay answered. But at least the part where you write a song, I feel pretty good about. These different animals, I guess. But, they do intersect, and the places where they intersect are the thing that's interesting in this project, I guess, and interesting to us. And then also the fact that they can exist together this way and create, new meaning, sort of a composite sense of meaning, a composite sense of authorship that's a little bit more detached. The listener takes Lisa's ideas and takes my ideas and puts them together, and you have this new third thing that's beyond either of our intention or ability to control. We don't sit down and try to hammer all this out. She gives me the stuff, and I run away with it. That implies a certain amount of trust on her part that I'm not going to make stuff that is embarrassing to her, hopefully. I guess if I have, she hasn't said anything about it. And it would not be interesting to me if I didn't find what she writes exciting and just difficult enough to parse that it really leaves the door wide open as a music writer. I feel like there's mystery there, and when you're writing songs, you're always chasing mystery. So the fact that it didn't originate in my brain doesn't really particularly matter to me.
We'd love to share with you our free compilation album, the Country Fried Rock Collection, Volume 1. All the songs were donated for the benefit of Nucci Space, a nonprofit organization helping prevent musician suicide in Athens, Georgia. Please consider a donation to Nucci Space. 100% of the money you donate goes directly to their services. Enjoy, y'all.
This is Jeffrey Foucault. You can check out my new record, Cavalcade, with my band Cold Satellite at www.jeffreyfoucault.com or www.coldsatellite.com.
There's some interesting continuity that you mentioned as well. One, you all have had a different type of this process before with the previous record, but also with the band that you worked with.
Yeah, knowing that the band is the same band from the first record plus one person. There's a songwriter from Wisconsin, a great songwriter, a guy named Hayward Williams, who had subbed in playing bass when we went to Europe on tour last winter. And our bass player had a baby boy. He wasn't about to go anywhere, so he couldn't make it. So we hired Hayward, he's a great singer and bass player, and he came in. And at the end of the tour, we said, well, geez, now we got Hayward. So we got to find something for him to do. So we made him play keyboards, which is not really his instrument, but he played so great. And he played a little bit of guitar, he put some licks here and there. And then he just, he sings his ass off. And he does a great job. So now we're a six-piece. And it was easy for me, having just toured with that band and knowing them the way that I do, it was easy to write the tunes and be really confident that it was going to sound cool. The best part of working with a band is the collaborative aspect, the fact that they take your work and they push it around and they add stuff that you never would have thought of, or they sometimes, sort of almost subtract. It becomes simpler. Halfway through this last tour, I realized that on one of the tunes, I really didn't need to play guitar. I go out solo and duo and stuff enough that I'm used to having to drive the bus. And here I am standing there with six people. I'm like, why do I keep trying to play guitar on this song? How about I just hold the guitar, concentrate on singing, which is, an interesting experience.
Are these already songs that you take on the road?
Yeah, we just completed an East Coast tour that was about 2 weeks long. And then we're playing festivals through the summer. We'll go to Europe in the fall. And we're hoping to get out to the West Coast in the late fall if we can manage that. And
Cool.
we're playing the songs from the new record. We play a few of the songs from the old record, first Cold Satellite record, that is. And then we also go back and play some songs from my own back catalog. I think in Europe we did about half and half. This time, because we're flogging the new record and we're really excited about the new songs, it's probably a little heavily loaded toward the Cold Satellite catalog. And then we go back, and the band knows a lot of my old songs. And Billy Conway, the drummer, he played on my last solo record, Horse Latitudes. And then when we toured that record, Jeremy Moses Curtis is the bass player in Cold Satellite. He was in the Horse Latitudes road band, so there's a lot of bleed there. My own deal and the Satellite thing.
I was a little confused about whether they were very segmented or how that worked.
Yeah, the great thing out here, and I don't know how much it'll happen, we're trying to figure out a way to do it. Lisa, will come up and read the poem version of a song.
Oh.
Or even from the side of the stage, so we'll put a mic up. She'll read the poem version, maybe the steel player starts making some noise, the keyboard player, and, we get some just sort of ambient stuff happening on stage, like get a sound floor together, and then she'll start to read the poem, which is great because it puts it in people's minds in the way that they listen to poetry. And then, you come out swinging with the rock song version of the poem, and it at least gives them even a few lines to hold on to so they can, they feel invited into the thing.
Cool.
And that was working out really well. And I don't know, she might come out and do some in the Midwest. And if she doesn't, my steel player says that I can record her reading the poem on my cell phone and hold it up to the pickup in my electric guitar. Will play through my amplifier.
Cool.
I think we'll try that. I think that could be cool. We could have a disembodied Lisa Olstein reading her poems, sort of art rock approach, or at least more so than I would ever. Everybody was trying to come up with slogans. The guitar player tried to call us the bête noire, the thing we hate description. So he was saying we should call ourselves the Black Sabbath of folk rock. It sounds like a Spinal Tap movie or something. Every once in a while, our records will come, they come out overseas on a different label, and then you get some press from overseas press in Dutch or Flemish, Swedish or whatever, and of course you run it through Google Translator because what else are you going to do? And my God, are they entertaining.
Never miss a radio show from Country Fried Rock. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock.
Hi, this is Jeffrey Foucault. You can get my new record, Cavalcade, the band Cold Satellite, at signaturesounds.com. I think the first record, the best phrase, somebody came up with the idea of compound meaning. Sounds like a graduate student seminar, but, that's essentially what it is. There's
right.
Meaning on Lisa's side, on my side. Inevitably, you write down a sentence, it means one thing. If you sing that sentence, the way that you sing it, the notes that you use change and color the sentence, so heavily. And then somebody listens to that sentence, and, they unite those two approaches.
Are you free for these songs to change?
Oh, yeah, and they do. They've changed on the road. I mean, musically, Dylan sets it out fairly nicely in his memoir, the first volume of his memoir, where he says basically that, Hank Williams wrote the rule book for how we write songs and put together, verse, refrain, bridge, verse, refrain, that sort of, those things, and the variations on those things. And we're still basically doing those things. And so there's a certain implicit logic when you write a song. If it's a good song, it has deep pockets. Sound is very forgiving, and you can play the song a bunch of different ways. You can play with different tempos, you can play at different stresses on the language, different keys, and different instrumentation, and it still holds up because the structure is good. And so these songs, for the most part, they feel pretty structurally sound, and the band doesn't love to repeat itself. So we certainly don't ever approach things with like a note for note, Steely Dan, Eagles sort of live approach. We're like, we go out there, the solos, they happen mostly in the same spots, but the notes are all different, and I would get bored if I sang stuff the same way every time. So there's a whole lot of latitude for interpretation.
As you said, you took her poetry, and there were times when, in order to make it a lyric, it needed to have its own new structure. Are you finding that any of that is changing as well?
I don't change the language too very much. I might change small things in the language, but for the most part, the language stays pretty intact. I might make a few bits and bobs, but about it.
Country Fried Rock is a proud sponsor of Front Porch Fest, coming to Stewart, Virginia, August 30th through September 1st. Get your tickets now at frontporchfest.com.
Hi, this is Jeffrey Foucault of Cold Satellite. You're listening to Country Fried Rock.
Is that different when you're working with your own stuff?
No, it's really the same process, which is that you don't know a song until you've been out playing it for a while. So you write the songs, you don't know them at all, and then you go into the studio and pay people a lot of money to help you record them before you really know how they go. And you're taking your best guess. But the song will teach itself to you over the course of 6 months or a year. And about a year in is when you should probably re-record that record now that you know all the songs. But, at the same time, you got to get stuff while it's hot. And so you might lose the pressure, the ambition, all that stuff. There's a desire to get a song recorded and cut when it's new that's probably not there after you've been flogging it for years.
What was your process in recording this particular record?
This one was, by our standards, luxurious. The first record we did, we arrived on a Friday afternoon and cut 12 songs, and we were gone by Sunday morning.
Whoa.
And this one, I think we had 5 days. We had Monday to Friday. And we basically had the record cut in the first 3 days, but I lost my voice in the studio. So some of the tracks, my voice sounds really ragged, and we think that sounds cool, so we left it on. That was like as it was blowing out. And that had never happened to me before. It was kind of a strange experience and a badly timed one to be in the studio with 5 other guys and not be able to sing. But what it did was it forced us to pay really close attention, and it changed some of the tunes. It actually changed our approach to the tune because I couldn't emote or deliver the tune the way that I intended to. So I have this, on a scratch vocal. Well, we're all playing and we just use a scratch vocal. I'm singing so quietly that the band plays really quietly. And then I came back in, to do the vocal recut later in the week or a couple weeks later, depending on which song. And it really changed the way that I approached the tune because the band was playing one way. I wasn't going to come in and barnstorm all over the place.
But it's still very much a rock record, whether loudness is...
Oh, yeah. No, it is. And I need to sing those songs that are the way that I envision them. And so I needed to go back in and cut a few things here and there. But then some of the ones where my voice is really shot, feels like the right vocal approach to the songs. We just left it in there. 5 days, 5 nights. And we were at a place called the Clubhouse, beautiful little studio in upstate New York. If you follow the Hudson River away from Manhattan, about an hour and a half. Rhinebeck, it's right there over by Bard College. It's like an old farmhouse style thing. We need someplace where we could do it residentially, and that's what we've done both times. And it's really important to me to have everybody sort of sequestered and eat together and wake up. So you're really just living and breathing the whole deal, and you make your coffee in the morning and walk into the studio and sit down in front of a microphone and start playing. I expect to make another solo record sometime, probably in the next year. I have a lot of tunes, and probably what I need to do is to just go in and record all those tunes and stop thinking about them and then write new tunes for the next thing. I have a bunch of new stuff. I have a bunch of old stuff. There's a lot of songs that are uncollected at this point, and I feel like I should just record them so in case I get hit by a bus or something, they actually exist, because 4 or 5 years worth of uncollected songs that need to just get put down. When I'm not playing with a satellite band, I'm playing solo or with an electric guitar player or sometimes a pedal steel player. In those shows, I concentrate on my own songs, and then I play a few of the satellite tunes, depending on what I'm feeling up to that night.
I heard the record, and it is very accessible.
Yeah, I hope so. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's what we were shooting for, and also, hopefully, if somebody just, driving along and hears one of these tunes on the radio, they'll say, oh, that's a cool song, and it won't matter how it was put together, just that, it's a good band and a cool song, and, it makes you feel a certain way, and that's all you can really ask for.
Safe travels, and looking forward to catching this on the road soon.
Thanks. Appreciate you doing this.
Country Fried Rock, music uncovered. Find our full playlist at countryfriedrock.org. You can subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock. Our theme music is from The Heap. Check them out at heapdeluxe.com. That's HEAPDELUXE. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts. Country Fried Rock. Copyright 2013 by Lily Pad Productions. All rights reserved. Country Fried Rock is a partnership with the nonprofit Florence Regional Arts Alliance. Your donations to this program are tax deductible to the extent you are eligible under U.S. law. Country Fried Rock radio programs are distributed to public radio through the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org.
Ever he been helping us some country fried rock.